Part 1: The Stories People Told. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about Caobao Road Station in Shanghai. Caobao Road Station is in Shuhui District, on Shanghai Metro Line 1. Line 1 was one of the earliest subway lines in the city. It opened back in the 1990s, and for many people in Shanghai, it has always felt like an old line. Crowded, busy, and running through parts of the city where all kinds of people pass through every day. Because of that, there have always been stories about it. But Caobao Road Station had more stories than most. No one can really say why. One of the earliest things people often mentioned was the train trouble. For a while, people said that whenever a train pulled into Caobao Road Station, it would suddenly break down. It would stop there and refuse to move. But once dispatchers sent another train to tow it away from Caobao Road Station, the so-called broken train would start working again, as if nothing had happened at all. People brought that story up every now and then, but if you asked what actually caused it, no one could give you a clear answer. The accidents were strange too. In the early years, Caobao Road Station did not yet have full platform screen doors installed. Those are the glass safety barriers you now see along subway platforms, separating passengers from the tracks until the train arrives. People are used to them today, but back then, without those barriers, the edge of the platform was very close to the tracks. One extra step forward could be dangerous. They said there was once a passenger waiting on the platform. When the train was about to arrive, he seemed to lean forward, maybe just trying to see if the train was coming. He had been standing there normally, but then, without any warning, he suddenly moved toward the edge and fell onto the tracks. At that moment, the train came roaring into the station. It was too late for anyone to stop it. Afterward, some witnesses said it did not look like he had simply lost his balance. They said it looked more like something had pulled him down. Some even said he seemed to be struggling, as if he was trying to get free from something no one else could see. Of course, no one could prove that. Officially, it was only an accident. There was another incident involving a man who had come to Shanghai from another part of China for work. It was his first time taking the subway, and he was curious about everything. While standing on the platform, he stretched his head out and looked into the dark tunnel. A station worker noticed him and was about to go over and stop him. But before the worker could reach him, the train had already arrived. It hit him directly. That story spread widely afterward. People said the scene was so terrible that no one wanted to describe it in detail. The driver was badly shaken and had to rest for a long time before returning to work. Even the people who cleaned up the scene were frightened by what they saw. Taken one by one, these things sounded like accidents. But when too many similar things happened, people started to feel that something was wrong. The thing that really made the station staff afraid of Caobao Road happened later. After subway service ends for the night, the station does not immediately become empty. After the last passenger train leaves, night shift workers still have to go down into the track area to remove trash and debris, and sometimes to check equipment. Going down to the tracks means stepping off the platform and entering the area where the trains run. During the day, ordinary passengers are absolutely not allowed there. Only after the station closes can staff go down. According to the story, one night after service had ended, several workers went down as usual to clear the tracks. One male station worker had only walked a short distance when he heard a woman laughing from inside the dark tunnel. It was not talking. It was not crying. It was laughter. He was so frightened that he turned around and ran back out. After that night, he refused to go down there again. No matter how people asked him what he had seen, he would not say a word. Not long after that, he quit his job. Later, after he had been drinking, he finally told someone what had happened. He said that night he had seen a woman inside the tunnel. The woman was wearing red, and she was sitting on a chair. But how could there be a chair inside a subway tunnel? He said the tunnel was too dark to see clearly. He could only make out a person sitting ahead of him. At first he wanted to walk closer and see who it was. Then the woman suddenly lifted her head and smiled at him. That was when he ran. After that story spread, people working at the station became even more afraid of Caobao Road. Of course, the station management would never admit to anything supernatural. Publicly, they said everything was an accident or a coincidence, and that staff should not spread rumors. But the people who actually worked the night shift knew what they were dealing with. If they had to go down to the tracks at night, either to clear trash or inspect the tunnel, they never went alone. Over time, the station developed an unwritten rule. At night, if anyone had to go down to the tracks, at least 3 people had to go together. But even 3 people were not always enough. There was another incident, also after subway service had ended. A few workers went down to clear the tracks. Among them was a young woman who had not been working there very long. She was new, and every time she had to go below the platform, she still looked nervous. She was working with her head down when something seemed to startle her. She turned around and ran back, as if she had lost her mind. The 2 workers with her quickly grabbed her and asked what had happened. Her face was completely pale. She said there was a woman in the tunnel, a woman with her hair hanging over her face, standing in the dark. One of the other workers had a strong flashlight, so he shone it deep into the tunnel. But there was nothing there. The tunnel was empty. Normally, if there was nothing there, they should have kept working, but they all knew the stories about Caobao Road. No one wanted to walk deeper into the tunnel to check. Besides, they were almost finished anyway, so the 3 of them hurried back up to the platform and went home. The problem came the next morning. When the early shift maintenance workers entered the tunnel for inspection, they found that same young woman sitting on the raised concrete ledge beside the tracks. She was sitting there, motionless, her eyes blank, mumbling to herself. The maintenance workers called to her several times, but she did not respond. Then one of them raised his voice and shouted. Only then did she seem to suddenly wake up. She stood up stiffly, turned around, and ran deeper into the tunnel. The 3 maintenance workers chased after her at once, but she ran unbelievably fast. They could not catch up. Logically, if she kept running through that section of tunnel, she should have reached Shanghai Stadium Station, the next station down the line. The maintenance workers immediately contacted the staff there and told them to watch for someone coming through the tunnel. But the people at Shanghai Stadium Station said they saw no one. After that, the young woman disappeared. She never came back to work. Her family later came to the station demanding answers, and the station offered some form of compensation. But exactly how the matter was handled, outsiders never really knew. All anyone knew was that she was never found. No one knew what she had seen that night. No one knew why she had appeared in the tunnel the next morning. And no one knew where she ran after that. In the end, she was never seen again, alive or dead. Just as that incident was starting to fade from people's memory, something else happened at Caobao Road Station. One year, a young woman jumped from the platform onto the tracks. Afterward, workers on the night shift often heard the sound of a violin coming from inside the tunnel. The sound was faint and distant, as if it were drifting up from somewhere deep underground. Later, people found out that the girl who had jumped had studied violin when she was alive. People said she had been quite good at it. Connected to this story was another new employee at the station. This time, it was a young man. He was good-looking, tall, thin, and quiet. He did not talk much, and his personality was a little withdrawn. Several young women at the station liked him, but he was too shy. Whenever someone tried to talk to him, he would only smile. Over time, he became the loneliest person at the station. After he had worked there for more than a year, something changed. He suddenly became cheerful. He talked more. He smiled more. One of the older female staff members, the kind who liked to ask about other people's business, asked him what was going on. That was when she learned that he said he had a girlfriend. He said she was a cheerful young woman with a bright smile. She had just started university, and she played the violin. At first, the older staff member did not think much of it. Young people dating was nothing strange. But as time went on, she began to feel that something was not right. First of all, although the young man said he had a girlfriend, no one at the station had ever seen her. Not once. Not even in a photo. And there was something even stranger. Whenever that older staff member worked the night shift with him, she would sometimes see him standing alone on the platform, whispering to a pillar. He would talk and smile, as if he were having a happy conversation with someone. Later she asked him about it. He always smiled and said nothing. After she asked too many times, he finally told her that he had been talking to his girlfriend. He said that after class, his girlfriend would come to the subway station to see him. The older staff member immediately felt something was wrong. What kind of university girl would come to a subway station in the middle of the night to visit someone? From then on, she began to pay closer attention. Before anyone could figure out what was happening, one night during the night shift, she suddenly saw the young man walking toward the edge of the platform. One of his hands was stretched forward. The movement looked as if someone was holding his hand and leading him. The older staff member quickly called out his name, but he did not seem to hear her. Without stopping, he stepped straight off the platform and walked into the tunnel. Just like the young female worker before him, once he entered the tunnel, he vanished. The next day he did not come to work. From then on he was missing. Because of what had happened before, the station immediately organized people to search the tunnel. They checked the surveillance footage. They questioned the workers on duty. They also contacted his family. But in the end, they found nothing. His family later came to the station demanding answers as well. The station offered compensation and then tried very hard to keep the whole thing quiet. But the more people try to hide a thing like that, the easier it is for the story to spread. For some reason, those two incidents later reached a reporter from a local evening newspaper. The reporter was determined to find out what was really going on. At first, he openly went to ask one of the older female staff members. Of course, she claimed she knew nothing. He was not satisfied, so he went around asking other station employees, but they all gave the same answer. They did not know. They were not sure. They had never seen anything. But the information the reporter had received was clearly too specific. He did not believe that these people truly knew nothing. So he decided to stay behind and see for himself. No one knows exactly how he did it, but after the last train had left that night, he somehow remained inside the station. There were still staff members on duty late at night, of course, but once there were no passengers, most of them stayed in the duty room and did not come out unless they had to. Besides, Caobao Road already had such a frightening reputation that many night shift workers did not want to stand alone on the platform for too long. So at first, no one noticed him. According to the story, sometime after midnight, the reporter really did hear it. The sound of the violin. It came from the tunnel at the far end of the platform. Faint, distant, like someone standing deep underground, slowly playing a song no one had ever heard before. He was the kind of reporter who could not leave a story alone. When he heard it, he did not run. Instead, he wanted to go down and take a look. But just as he reached the edge of the platform, Before he could step down, he suddenly heard a sound behind him. Thump, thump, thump. The sound of a ball bouncing. He turned around and saw a little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old. She was holding a small rubber ball, bouncing it on the platform not far away. The ball was so dirty that he could not tell what color it had originally been. When the reporter saw the girl, he thought she might be the child of one of the workers on duty. Maybe her family had no one to look after her, so someone had brought her to the station for the night. The little girl saw him looking at her, but she did not seem afraid. She looked at him. Then she looked toward the tunnel at the end of the platform. Then, in a small, quiet voice, she said, "The lady in there is bad. Don't go in." The reporter found that very strange, so he asked her, "Why is that lady bad?" The little girl did not look happy or angry. She just kept bouncing the ball. Then she said, "She just is." The reporter wanted to ask more, but suddenly someone called out behind him. It was a station patrol worker. The worker saw him standing near the edge of the platform and was startled. He rushed over and asked what he was doing there in the middle of the night, standing so close to the tracks. The reporter turned around, wanting to explain that there was a child there too. But when he looked back in the direction of the girl, he froze. She was gone. That side of the platform was empty. There were only a few pillars. No child at all. After hearing what the reporter said, the patrol worker's face changed too. He said it was impossible for a child to be inside the station at that hour. The last train had already left. The gates had been locked. The station had already been cleared. There should not have been a child there. In fact, there should not have been any ordinary passenger there at all. Only then did the reporter realize what he had just seen. The little girl bouncing the ball might not have been human. That night the staff did not let him stay any longer. They made him leave the station and warned him never to sneak in again after closing. If there was a next time, they would call the police. But honestly, they did not need to warn him. The reporter had already been badly frightened. He had come to investigate the ghost stories around Caobao Road Station, but after actually encountering something himself, he no longer dared to keep digging. In the end, he never wrote an official article about it. He only mentioned it privately to a few people, saying that there really was something inside Caobao Road Station. From then on, the stories about Caobao Road gained one more figure: a little girl who bounced a ball. These stories circulated in Shanghai for many years. After being passed from person to person, no one could really tell which parts were true and which parts had been exaggerated along the way. At first, I only half believed them, until later, when a friend of mine had his own encounter at Caobao Road Station.